When I meet these individuals, it's creating a safe environment for them that's non-judgmental. We're partners in their learning journey, and it's always based on collaboration and mutual respect. So this is adult education. So we always recognize the strengths that our learners are bringing already.
Hello, I'm Eric Anderson. The voice you just heard belongs to Charlene Siwak. She's the featured guest in Season 6, Episode 2 of YXE Underground. Literacy is something that many of us take for granted, and yet 1 in 3 people in our province struggle when it comes to things like reading, writing, comprehension, and numeracy skills. At Foundations Learning and Skills Saskatchewan, a dedicated group of staff and volunteers are helping adults who want to improve their literacy skills for free. Charlene Siwak is the Adult Literacy Coordinator at Foundations and sees the impact literacy has in our community. She takes listeners inside the adult literacy programs offered by Foundations and why this work means so much to her in this episode of YXE Underground. I think it takes a lot of courage for people to admit when they need help and seek out resources that can help them achieve their goals. And when it comes to Foundations Learning and Skills, the goals it helps people reach revolve around literacy. The organization, formerly known as READ Saskatoon, has been helping people 18 and over in Saskatoon and the province for decades achieve their learning goals. Now, these goals could be small, like improving their math skills to pass a workplace exam, or larger, like improving their overall reading comprehension skills. Charlene Siwak and her colleagues work with learners from all walks of life in Saskatoon to help them reach their goals. And what I found so interesting in speaking with Charlene is just how unique it is working with adult learners compared to high school or elementary school students. Another theme of my conversation with Charlene is the importance of volunteers. Charlene could not run her adult literacy programs without her more than 100 volunteers who serve as coaches to the participants in the programs. One of those volunteer coaches is Cassidy Zuba. She is enrolled in social work at the University of Saskatchewan and for the past 3 years has been working with a learner to develop his reading, writing, and comprehension skills. They meet once a week over Zoom and have developed a friendship through their work together. Cassidy says that building trust between a coach and learner makes the learning process more productive and enjoyable.
I think it's just really important because without that trust, I don't think that you can grow in your relationship just the way that you can. It'll never be that full growth. And I think it's just, again, really empowering for the learners to have that trust because they feel more confident when they're doing things. And then there's also that confidence where, if they're still struggling, that's okay because they know that their coach is going to help them through the steps and they have that trust and they know that it's okay, we'll get there. So I think that that's a really crucial part of it.
The work being done at Foundations is making an impact on so many lives in our community, and that is something that makes Charlene Siwak smile. She is passionate about making a difference in people's lives, and as you will discover in our conversation, loves working with adults to reach their education goals. I learned so much from Charlene in our conversation, and I know you are going to as well. I met Charlene at the Foundation's office in Saskatoon's City Park neighborhood, and we sat at a table in one of their conference rooms. I started by asking how people in our community first begin with the adult literacy program.
A lot of our adult learners are referred to us by a community partner, or they could have heard about us through word of mouth or someone else who's taken programs or found us online even with some of the things that we have going on in the community. So they come to us from a variety of ways, and some of us have known about our programming for a long time, but it's taken some courage to make that first step to coming to see us.
When I was thinking, in my mind in terms of our conversation today, the word courage came to my mind a little bit because I do think it takes some courage for someone to say, I need some help, doesn't it?
It does, especially when you're an adult. I was just talking this morning with our program manager, Sherry, and we were talking about how as adults we get pretty comfortable with what we're doing and in life, and we're comfortable with the things that we're good at, and it's hard to make changes sometimes or to try something new. And so a lot of times there can be stereotypes around adult learners, and there could be shame associated, especially when it comes to literacy. So it takes sometimes 1, 2, 3 times to make that first appointment with us to come in. It takes a lot of courage for some of our learners to walk through the door and say, I want to change, or I need support working on writing, reading, numeracy, speaking, whatever their goals are.
What are those first conversations like?
The first conversations are wonderful because I love meeting adult learners because I get to hear about their goals and the changes that they want to make in their life and the skills that they wanted to continue to develop. So when people come to us, adults, they have a resources, knowledge, a lot of background, knowledge, and life experience already. So we find out what skills they have. We have a strength-based approach, and we start there. So it's always focused on what the learner wants. It's learner-centered and based on their goals. And I love learning about that and what hopes and goals they want to achieve.
So those first few times that is it almost kind of like you're just getting to know the person, like as a person, and then you sort of dive deeper in terms of what they need to, or I guess, like you said, what they want to work on, but it sounds like you get to know them too.
Yeah, you do get to know them a little bit personally. The intake takes about 45 minutes. And, other than the demographic information that we collect on the learners and learning about their goals and why they've come to our agency, I also do an informal reading and writing assessment with them. So we're looking at, graded word lists. We're doing some comprehension questions and then doing just, it's very informal, but it gives us a benchmark for what resources and material would be appropriate for them and would be able to best support them with their sessions going forward.
Is it like when in that initial assessment too, like are people nervous, or are they excited to kind of start on this journey, or does it kind of depend on the person?
It really depends on the person. Yeah. We don't really have a typical learner because our learners are as unique as their individual goals. So some people might be a little bit nervous, others would be excited. It really depends on the person. I think it depends on how their experiences have maybe been with formal education in the past. They could be entering a program with multiple barriers. Some have no barriers to learning. Others have multiple barriers to learning. So all of those things really, the lens they see learning through, and they have some assumptions about their own learning, their own abilities. All of these things would influence if they're excited or nervous or happy. But what I can say is, when I meet these individuals, it's creating a safe environment for them that's non-judgmental. We're partners in their learning journey, and it's always based on collaboration and mutual respect. So this is adult education. So we always recognize the strengths that our learners are bringing already, right? So we really respect the autonomy of our learners, and we focus on providing them with resources and tools versus resilience.
Gosh, there is so much to choose from that answer, Charlene. Yeah. There were so many things. Okay. So I was just making mental checkpoints, like ask about this. But you talked about creating a safe space, which I think is so important, especially like you said, if a person's past experience or prior experience in education maybe wasn't that enjoyable, to create a safe space. So how do you go about creating a safe space?
Okay, so we want them we want all of our adult learners to know that their strengths are going to be recognized, that we have an informal approach to education. So we allow for flexibility in our programming, and for them, I guess initially during the intake, when I think back to that, we spend quite a bit of time in that 45 minutes talking about their goals, and there's a reason for that. The first reason is that goals are important because the learner is in control of their learning journey, and that might be the first time that as an adult they're in control of their own learning. The second reason is it lets them focus on the future, and then they know that the future can be different than it is today. So that is why that goal setting is so important. So that creates a safe environment, and to let them know also that they're not alone. In Saskatchewan, 1 out of 3 adults struggles with literacy daily. So that's important to know, that it's not just them, that we're helping adults every day, and they have the tools to develop their literacy skills no matter where they are on that literacy continuum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned the word in terms of setting goals, and the word empowering came to my mind right away. It must be empowering just within those first 45 minutes for a person to know, okay, I'm in this safe space, but like you said, I'm in control of this right now.
Yeah, exactly. And that makes anybody feel safe, right? And when you have some choice. So, and that includes really our sessions with their coaches as well. We provide a lot of training and support with all of our volunteer coaches. So they know how to create sessions that are learner-centered, and to have the learner involved in their sessions. It's very important. So one of the characteristics of all adult learners is they are self-directed, and what that means is they know best how they learn, and they know what works. So that's where the coaches recognize that. They recognize their skills and their strengths, and then they build from that. Instead of a curriculum. We don't have a set curriculum where you must do this and complete this textbook and do these things. So, yeah.
I was curious about that, because I know when we were exchanging emails before, one of the things I was curious about was how this differs from teaching, in elementary school or middle school, those literacy, and in high school as well, those literacy skills. But yeah, so that would be one main difference then. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, and I mean, there's many characteristics of adult learners, but just to touch on a few of them. One is that they're self-directed, like I mentioned before. The other one is that they, adults have a wealth of knowledge and experience that they bring already. And so they have a sense of who they are and what they want, right? The other thing is that adults want to have authentic learning experiences. So, and it has to be things that they can use outside of the classroom or outside of the session right away. So there has to be some practical application. And another thing is that they must be involved in that learning process, right? So that's why we don't have a curriculum, and it's based on the learner's goals. So, typically our adult learners, they come to our agency because they want support with reading, writing, numeracy, or comprehension and speaking. So, but those broad categories might be different. It could be work-related, academic-related, or a personal goal, for example.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I can just give a little bit of a scenario. So say a person wants to, they come in, they meet you, and one of their goals is that they want to work on their reading skills. And you've done you've had your initial meeting with them.
Yeah.
You've set some goals. What are the next steps then? Are they paired with a volunteer right away, or how does that work?
Sure. So the next step, that I would do is part of that process is to also ask them about their availability. So, a lot of our participants are working. 40% of our adults are working part or full time. We have another 40% that are in some form of classes or education. So, and they're busy parents with adult responsibilities or, family responsibilities. So we ask about their availability. Do they want to meet in the morning, the afternoon, the evening, or on the weekends? When's the best time for them? And then we ask them if they're comfortable with meeting in person at a public library or over Zoom or some other virtual platform. So after I get that information, I then build a customized learning plan for them. Okay, so based on what their goal is, their short-term goal, maybe long-term goal. I look at the skills they want to develop, whether that's reading, writing, numeracy, speaking, comprehension. And then I come up with some initial activities and resources. So I build a customized learning plan, and then I find a coach with the expertise they need and that matches their availability. So, that process takes a bit of time. So usually within 2 to 3 weeks, I find a coach, and then I arrange for an initial introductory type meeting where we all meet, make sure everyone's comfortable, and we go over the learning plan, and then off they go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is when you have that meeting with the three of you, what's that like?
Oh, it's wonderful because you'd think initially that, I remember the first match meeting, we call them these introductory meetings, you'd think initially that the learner would be the one that's nervous, but sometimes it's the coach that's nervous, especially if it's a new volunteer and it's their first learner, their adult learner, right? So they're a little bit nervous about doing a good job and supporting that adult with what they need, right? So, but it always goes well. It's great to have a sense of humor. It's very relaxed. It's about 15 or 20 minutes. And we're just there to make sure that we have a schedule going forward and that they have the resources and the tools they need for planning their first and next sessions. Okay. Right, yeah.
So then once that meeting's done, is it, how involved are you afterwards then?
Right, that's a great question. After a month, I do a follow-up phone call with both the learner and the coach. So this is just to get their feedback, how things are going, make sure everybody's happy with how things are progressing, and see if there's anything else I can help with. And then at the 3-month, the 6-month, and then every 6 months after, I actually do a bit more formal of an evaluation. So at those points, we have a learner evaluation survey and a coach evaluation survey. So I'll often call the learner to do this survey where it gets specific feedback, and I send one to the coaches as well. So these evaluation surveys are very important because it helps us to keep our programming effective and to respond to things as they come up. And also it's crucial for our program because we're looking for concrete examples of skill development and where the learners are using strategies that we're teaching. And the reason for this is that our programs are free. So, we've removed that financial barrier for adult learners, but we do have a responsibility to our board, to our community members and our learners to report on the successes in our program, right? And what learners are getting out of our program. Yeah.
It's incredible that it is free, and I want to ask a little bit more about that in a minute. But like my mind is flashing back to like my assessment and evaluation classes at the University of Saskatchewan when I was doing the ed degree, and we're in a classroom setting. It's like you're assessing and evaluating every day. Right. But with this, especially like once you're like, once your initial meeting with the volunteer and the individual, and then they go, like, is that do you want to check up on them more, or like is it? Do you ever get like? I don't know. It's like they're leaving the nest kind of deal. How does that feel?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'm just a phone call away, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes initially with new pairs, I might have more frequent communication with the coach. Just make it, they might have questions about certain resources or activities they're doing, or the learner may not be finding the activities that I've put on the learning plan effective. And again, they're self-directed. So it's just a starting point, and goals and activities can change as they meet, right? So I tend to leave them alone because I trust in our coach's ability to support those adults, and the adults know that they can contact me anytime if they have any concerns. So I find that's frequent enough. And they're getting, the other thing, another characteristic about an adult learner that differs from a child is they do want constant feedback. So this is when they're with their coach, that is one of the elements of their sessions. So they're getting feedback. We don't like to call it evaluation at that time, but they're getting feedback, and at each session with their coach, so they know if they're on the right track. Right? So when I'm talking to them, it's just more of a kind of a check-in to see, have they improved? This was their goal. Are they making progress? Have they completed it? Because some learners' goals are complex, and we are one step towards a longer-term goal, or others might be a very short-term finite goal. So, for example, sometimes we have adult learners come to us, they want support with passing the written portion of a driver's exam. Okay, so they're having problem maybe with the vocabulary, test-taking strategies, inference, for example, for comprehension. So we set them up with a coach. Well, they may only be with our adult lit program for 3 to 6 months. They write the test and pass, they're done. So they're on to their next goal. So it might just be a short-term goal, or it might be a much longer goal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. You see the whole spectrum then, don't you?
Yeah, for sure I do. Yeah, and it's wonderful. And the best thing about working in my job, working here for Foundations, and being in my role, is how there's successes every week. So, we have between 120 to 130 learners a year in our adult literacy program, and about 100 coaches. So every week a coach or a learner is calling to tell us about a success or achieving their goal or moving on to the next thing. So that's just the best part about my job. I just love it so much.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you had that many people involved, and not only in terms of individuals, but coaches as well.
Yeah, our volunteers are the lifeblood of our agency. So I think Kathleen mentioned that there's 191 volunteers last year. We have about 100 in LEAD, which is the adult literacy program. So that works out to the equivalent of about 11 full-time staff. So, we do this work in the community through our staff members here at Foundations, and our volunteers, right? And our funders, so our community partners. So that volunteers are very important, yeah.
Where do your volunteers come from?
Oh my gosh, we're always looking for more volunteers. So, they come from all walks of life. And that's the other great thing is they are, just as individuals, are learners. So I get to meet people with varied backgrounds, levels of education and experience, and those are all such important elements of our programming because our learners need all different skill development, right? So sometimes, for example, we have a learner who might be, this is a success story actually from this week. I'm kind of going down a bit of a rabbit hole here.
Please do. It's a podcast. You go down the rabbit hole.
Anyway, we had this learner. He was in his late 50s, and I did an intake with him, and he had tried numerous times to pass the math portion of the GED. And so he had suffered a workplace injury. He could no longer do his previous career, but he had a kind of an interrupted formal education. So he never did finish his grade 12. So fast forward all these years, he's happily working, raising his family, working in the community, contributing. But this injury cause the situation where he couldn't return to that job. He needed to reskill. So his goal was to attend post-secondary education, okay, to take a different program, start a new career path. But what was holding him back was this GED certificate. He had passed every exam other than the math, okay? So we have coaches in our program, volunteers with math as an expertise, a level of expertise. So matched him with a coach. That learner, I just found out this morning that this learner passed his math GED. So I live for those moments, and all of my colleagues live for those moments. So because we know now he's done. He'll be finished in our program. He's going to be moving on to enroll in a post-secondary institution, right? So yeah, very rewarding, right? So, and I mean, that's an example of a learner that didn't really have a lot of barriers to learning other than maybe financial barriers, right? So, and he got a very high level of support in terms of numeracy. So yeah, it worked out so wonderful.
That's great. And then that person, he was matched up with someone who had that specialty in math. And then, yeah.
Yeah, so that coach, that was their area of expertise, and so some might be retired teachers, other business people, other volunteers. We have a lot of university students, for example, that volunteer with adult literacy. But so they're from all varied backgrounds. There's people from the community that care about the effects that low literacy has on some of our neighbors, okay, and how that limits their opportunities. So they have a passion for that, making a difference. And one thing that's the same with all of our volunteers is they love reading and literacy. Okay, so that's like the baseline. So, but it's also that passion for, wanting to contribute and support and walk with people on their journey, on their learning journey, right? Not everyone has equal opportunities. And, if we all, I think as adults, if we all think about a lot of the personal success or, economic success maybe that we have in our life, a lot of it is directly related to your literacy levels. Yeah. Right. So, and not everyone has equal opportunities, right, for whatever reason. So, yeah, that's I meet all sorts of people. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
You said something so interesting too about how like with your volunteers, some like a lot of them see the impact in their own community and want to help, which just I think says a lot about them. But then also that there is an organization where they can, it's one thing to see and recognize something needs to change, but it's another to I wish there was an organization that could help facilitate that, but there is.
They're us. And they're us. It's us. Come see us. So, we are experts when it comes to the field of literacy. We're in an informal education, organization, but when it comes to literacy and adult learning, or even literacy with family and children, or other literacy programs here, or financial literacy, we really are on the leading edge of that. So, and we are just happy to contribute to our community in any way that we can, and especially work with our community partners. So sometimes we have learners in the adult literacy program that are also in programming. Like I mentioned, 40% of them are taking classes. Well, it could be a link class through a settlement agency, or it could be a class through Gabriel Dumont Institute, or it could be through Quint Development or something like that, an employment program. So and we work with these partners to support the success for these learners. Yeah.
That's really interesting too, because one of the great things about doing this podcast for 6 years now is you realized I've realized how connected this community is, in terms of when you have all these amazing organizations like foundations, like you said, like a Quint, like Friendship Inn, like all these different places, food bank that work together towards these common goals. That must be kind of cool to be a part of.
It is. That's actually kind of an extra perk of my position is I get to learn about the great work that all of our community partners are doing in our community. And I get to hear about those successes. We share things that are working with each other and how we can support each other's programming. And, to go back on an earlier comment that I had where we focus on a learner's literacy. So, we recognize with some of our learners that there may be multiple barriers, but we don't have any control over those barriers. So just because they're entering our program to work on their literacy skills, their barriers still exist. So we have to focus on learning and literacy, but we can always rely on our community partners who have expertise in that area to assist our learners with support with those things. So we kind of work together, and that's why these relationships are so important. Yeah.
How did you get into the world of adult education? Because it's clear that you are so passionate about it. But how did you get into this world?
Okay, well, it wasn't linear. So in university, I earned a commerce degree initially. I had a long career in personal finance and banking for many years. And but what I was passionate about, I did a lot of HR and training in my financial career. But I also did a lot of volunteering in the community with the roles that I had. And so it exposed me to different community partners and what they're doing. So eventually I had done some speaking at a settlement agency in the city, and that made a real impact on me. And so I just kind of thought, I would like to work with the newcomer community. So then eventually I went, volunteering was always important in my faith community as well. But I did return back to university. I became an ESL teacher, and then I was teaching in adult education at the University Language Center as an ESL teacher. So I was focused on, English for international students there. So that is wonderful. I did that for a number of years up until very recently. And so I've also worked in a settlement agency in the administration of their link programming. And all of these experiences led me to the perfect role that I'm in now. So I just couldn't be happier when I started here this year with Foundations, because I feel all of my experiences and skills that I have from these other roles contribute to making me an effective coordinator here. For the learner in particular and adult education, which I do feel deeply about, my own father was an adult educator, my sister's an adult educator, and my uncle's an adult educator, so it runs a little bit of my family. About my belief there, my core belief and my passion, but also with volunteers and how important that is in the community, because I've volunteered my entire life, whether it's youth sport, amateur sport, or just different advocacy groups or what have you. So it's just kind of the perfect role. And then the other thing that's so wonderful is working with a group of people here that are so passionate about the same things. So it's, it's not a fad. It's not, the flavor of the moment. We understand the impact of that low literacy levels can have on a person's opportunity, a person's ability to participate in their community, a person's ability to get a job, maintain a job, or be promoted at a job. So, following our skills, the government skills for success model, this is where we kind of focus. These skills are just so important, because strong individuals make strong families, which makes a strong community. That's kind of how it all goes, right? Yeah. So it's easy to be passionate, especially when you see the successes of the learners in your program. Yeah.
Oh, this is it. Yeah. And it must be, like you said, it's so great when you do find that organization where you're all pulling in the same direction towards one goal. Like that's a good feeling, isn't it?
It is a great feeling. The leadership team here is really great. It's a very collaborative environment, and it really has, our workplace really has a culture of learning, and that's not really easy to pull off. So we're all learning and growing together. And Adult Lit really follows that whole philosophy, right? That we all believe in that philosophy here, but it's a partnership journey, and that's how we view adult literacy. Is the coach is not the expert, the tutor, they're a partner, and they're more like a guide or a mentor, right? So, and they're learning as well. We're all learning. I learn something from people I meet every week. And the best coaches or teachers or tutors are always learning. And so as a staff, we're always learning. You're encouraged to learn, make mistakes. That's part of the learning process. And that is the same. We try to have that same environment for our learners, right? And always growing and going forward. Yeah.
If there are people listening right now who would like to get involved in terms, I'm thinking volunteers, but also in terms of like if someone needs some help, how do they? Can they just come down, or like how does that work?
Sure, yeah. So let's talk about learners first. So if it's a learner who's listening, it's important for them to know that our program is open to adults over the age of 18. We can help them with work-related goals, academic-related goals, or personal-related goals. It could be reading, writing, numeracy, or comprehension. So sometimes our participants will enter our program. Let's say they're from the newcomer community, for example, so they want speaking practice and language acquisition support, right? Not maybe they might have literacy in their language of origin, right? So we offer that type of support. It's free. They can contact me anytime. It usually starts with a phone call and a conversation, and then we can set up a meeting time that's convenient for them. So we have continuous intake all year long. Okay, so they can call anytime. Okay, Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. So that's important for learners, and we can help them, whether they're working on a GED, want to get their driver's test, or whatever goal they have, we will find a coach that can support them in that, okay? For volunteers, we have kind of a process. We really invite all volunteers to first look at the website, and it lists kind of what they need to do. So they can begin by coming to an orientation. It's a 1-hour orientation. We have one coming up in October. It's usually from 12 to 1. Sometimes they're in person, sometimes virtual. They'll learn about all of our programs during that orientation. So some volunteers, they might, after hearing about financial lit, are interested in volunteering that way, or family literacy, or children's literacy, or adult literacy, right? So after they do that, they fill out an application. We require references and criminal record checks, which we can provide a letter for, so they don't have to pay a fee. And then for I'll just speak about the adult literacy program. After all of that, then they would attend a 1-day training. We're actually having one tomorrow. So we have 10 new volunteers joining us tomorrow for a full day training from 9 to 4. So we really set up our coaches for success, because they come away from this training. We go over all the techniques and strategies they can use. They get a binder of materials, and just really that they can refer to in the future when assisting their learner. And just we talk about some, potential barriers that might come up, how to prepare a lesson or for a session, and we just go over everything in that training. So, and that's one way that we support our volunteers and coaches. And so then after that, let's say the volunteers are done tomorrow, they're done their training, then within a couple weeks after, I'll find them a learner to be matched with. Yeah, so, and then we also support our volunteers by having workshops throughout the year. And we have coach connectors. So these are where they have a chance to meet other coaches, talk about some successes or challenges. And then the workshops are usually about topics that have come up that might be helpful for them, right? Or it could be just new information, techniques around adult literacy, instruction, things like that. Yeah.
Wow. This is just fascinating. Yeah. I knew very little about the adult literacy world, and what I thought I knew came from being a former high school and middle school and elementary teacher. And it's so interesting and so different. Yeah, Charlene.
It's surprising. It's a bit surprising because, a lot of our learners, like about 50% have lesson in grade 12, but we do have a large percentage that have grade 12. But literacy is like any other skill. If you don't use it, let's say you're in a job that doesn't require a lot of reading or writing, right? Your skill can diminish over time. And now with the way our society and culture has been moving, Canada's a highly literate culture. So even jobs where you high literacy levels weren't required in the past, now they are. Mm-hmm. So it's affecting people that even had a grade 12 education, which you wouldn't think, but it's a continuum and it's a skill that develops over time with a lot of practice, right? So it could be just they've had a pause from using that skill, so they might just need a top up, like with our workplace writing workshops, for example, right? So just to brush up their writing skills because they haven't worked on them for a while. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I had a quick panic moment of like, what if I ever take a job in the future that requires me to do math, and I would just.
You call me.
I would call you. I would need a lot of help. Charlene, it was so nice to meet you. Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule. I hope the workshop goes well tomorrow. And yeah, like it was really nice to meet you. And congratulations on finding like your dream job. This is really exciting. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Eric. I've just had a great time talking about our program, our learners, our volunteers. So it was very nice to meet you as well, and stop by anytime.
I will do that. Thank you. My thanks to Charlene Siwak for taking time out of her busy schedule to share her story on the podcast. If you want to learn more about the adult literacy program, please visit foundationslearning.com. This has been Season 6, Episode 2 of YXE Underground. My name is Eric Anderson. I host, produce, and edit this local independent podcast. You can listen to YXE Underground wherever you find your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, or at yxeunderground.com. Please feel free to tell your friends all about YXE Underground and to leave a 5-star review if you like what you hear. You can follow YXE Underground on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I guess it's called X now. I'm going to keep calling it Twitter. But yes, you can stay updated on all things YXE Underground by following the podcast on social media. A few quick thank yous before I go. I would like to thank my cousin, Andrew Dixon, for creating the original themes for the podcast. Thank you to Saskatoon's Danger Dynamite for taking care of the website. And a big thank you to everyone who has purchased a YXE Underground dog and cat bandana. I still have a few left if you would like to purchase one. They cost $10, and all of the money goes to the Animal Safekeeping Program, an amazing program that helps people and animals who are fleeing domestic violence situations find safe homes. It's a partnership between New Hope Dog Rescue and the Saskatchewan SPCA and was the focus of last month's YXE Underground episode. Feel free to reach out on social media or email me if you would like to support this really great program. My email is ericanderson@gmail.com. Before I go, I would like to acknowledge that these interviews were recorded on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. YXE Underground is a production of the Salthammer Production Company. My name is Eric Anderson. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon, Saskatoon.